The Supreme Court to hear arguments on immunity for former President Donald Trump. Joining us live this morning to set the stage to what we can expect is attorney Seth Berenzweig. Good morning to you, Seth. Always a pleasure when we get to hear from you here on Live Now.
Thanks for having me back.
A pleasure to speak with you. So if you can set the stage for us, one word we've heard for the past several months is the word immunity as it relates to the former president. We know he has a lot of court cases going on, and then the gag order, and then this as well, immunity as it relates to the election process. Could you catch us up, please?
Sure. So today is really a historic day in the course of American jurisprudence. We have a former president of the United States arguing for absolute presidential immunity with respect to alleged criminal activity occurring during his presidency in a case that's being prosecuted after he left the White House. So I think it really it causes a moment of pause to reflect on that, because it really is an extraordinary hearing. Now, what the president is arguing in this case is that it is critical for a president to be able to execute and perform his duties that fall within the outer ambits of his authority, to use his attorney's words, without fear of criminal prosecution. And I will give a lot of credit where credit is due to his legal team, because in a way, if you think about it, he really has gotten essentially a form of immunity over the last several months, because they've been able to really squeeze this out. In fact, this is the very last day and the very last argument heard by the United States Supreme Court. But Jack Smith and his team is arguing in reply that there is no basis of legal authority in the Constitution or otherwise for the exercise of that kind of broad immunity, and that in fact, that if that immunity would apply, it would violate fundamental constitutional separation of powers, because that would place the presidency over Congress's ability to legislate criminal statutes, as well as being beyond the purview of judges throughout the United States.
Thank you for breaking that down for us, Seth. And I want to ask you, many of the viewers wanting to know, if that happens, what does that mean for all of the court cases that are underway right now? Will they be null and void?
Well, by the way, I think that result is very doubtful. If he wins this appeal, then arguably he has absolute presidential immunity for all actions related to his involvement in the presidential campaign, including the electors and so forth. So he would argue that that would shield him from any and all liability in the other cases. The reason why I think that there would be some potential outer limits to that effect is because one of the fact issues that would still have to be litigated is whether or not he performed such duties in the ambit of his presidential executive powers, or whether these were actions that were taken for his own personal political gain. And in fact, in the New York case, for example, which is currently before Judge Merchan in Manhattan, the prosecution would argue that alleged hush money for an affair that was, according to the prosecution's case, done to covertly and corruptly conceal information in the furtherance of a federal election is not within the purview of presidential power. So I think it's definitely a very good question, and it's a necessary question. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be extraordinarily difficult for Mr. Trump to win this, because there really doesn't appear to be any constitutional basis of authority. There is some authority per case law and DOJ policy with respect to certain immunities relative to civil liability, especially during the occurrence of the presidency. But as far as after Mr. Trump leaves office, it's going to be very difficult for him to win this appeal at the Supreme Court.
Seth, thank you so much for breaking that down and joining us this morning on Live Now from Fox. Is there anything else you'd like to add as we are looking ahead to the 10 o'clock hour for this hearing to begin?
Sure. I would just note, as a practical matter, the timing effect. If and when Mr. Trump does not succeed in this appeal, which I think will likely be the case, the decision will be out right before the 4th of July weekend, which means that the trial before Judge Chutkan in D.C. for the election subversion trial, which this directly connects to, will probably happen within 90 days after that decision is issued by the Supreme Court.
Seth, thank you again for joining us this morning on Live Now from Fox and setting the stage and giving us that background. You enjoy the rest of your day.